Hi, my name is Sophia Turech, and today I'm going to be presenting on the topic of integration of hospitals and emergency management preparation, mitigation, and response. So, this paper has primary objectives and supporting objectives. So, the primary objective is the overall overlapping purpose of this project, and then supporting objectives are going to be information and other things that help support the primary objective. So, the goal of this project is to examine how hospital resilience can be strengthened through collaboration and integration with emergency management and public health systems. So, essentially, what can hospitals do to put themselves in the best position possible to respond to a disaster, known or unknown, effectively and efficiently? Supporting objectives include identifying the importance of collaborative planning, assessing key components of hospital readiness, and discussing the roles of leadership, governance, and funding when it comes to disasters. When taking all of this into consideration, we will have an overarching idea of what hospitals can do to efficiently respond to a disaster. Topic overview. So, we're going to be talking about how hospitals play a crucial role in disaster response, as we know that they're where the victims of a disaster usually go to, and they are also the ones that provide continuity of care for ill patients that need constant monitoring and treatment. We are also going to be talking about how disasters strain healthcare systems through patient surge, possible infrastructure damage, and communication disruptions, as we know that during disaster it is very possible to have a high influx of patients suddenly and unexpectedly. Disasters can also cause infrastructure damage to the buildings, facilities, and systems used by a hospital during a disaster. And we also know that there could be possible communication disruptions, whether that be through cell tower disruptions, poor connection, poor internet connection. We know that there's a lot of issues that can definitely arise through there. And we are also going to be talking about how hospitals take the should take the route, I would say, to shift from isolated hospital preparedness to integrated planning with local emergency community and emergency managers. Again, really emphasizing that interagency collaboration. Then we are also going to talk about how proactive preparedness and interagency communications and coordinations strengthen overall hospital resiliency. So, what are the findings? So, we found out that hospitals that engage in early mitigation and preparedness planning had more effective disaster response and recovery. This is because we know that mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery are all intertwined, and the better you are prepared for one, the better you are prepared for all of them. Hospitals specifically, when they have strong mitigation and preparedness efforts and plans set in place prior to a disaster even being imminent or known about, we see more effective and better response and recovery efforts overall. We also saw that solid integration and collaboration with local agencies showed improvement preparedness and operational efficiency during disasters. So, really making sure that we're well informed through all of our agencies and stakeholders, whether that be EMS, firefighter, um, police officers, and other emergency managers. We saw that collaboration with all of these agencies resulted in better response as it allowed for more informed decision making and more efficient sharing of information. We also saw that pre-established plans when in regards surge capacity, staffing strategies, mutual aid agreements, and alternative care sites improve the hospital's ability to manage the sudden patient surge that was mentioned previously. So, what are we going to do in terms of when hospitals get that high influx of patients? What is our staff going to do? What is the role of our staff? Um, how are we going to work as a team to respond to this? Mutual aid agreements with other agencies that may be able to help with the patient influx. What are the agreements that we have? And so we saw that also alternative care sites, and as previously mentioned, for patients that need constant monitoring and treatment. We saw that when we have plans established for all of these areas, then we have a more effective and more successful response, as we are not making things up on the fly, but rather have known plans, known roles, and known disbursement of responsibilities, better said. We also saw that having solid communication and shared awareness between the agencies previously mentioned led to better decision making. Again, more informed decision making, easier relay of information. We saw that it just led to quicker and um, successful successful results. So, and also very important, the use of ICS and HICS improve the coordination, role clarity, and response effectiveness. So, this is a framework that we have set in place in terms of disaster response efforts. So, this is the incident command system, and then the HICS is the one specific for hospitals incident command systems. And this is basically a framework that is made specifically for disaster settings and times. So, again, we saw that when everything was going according to plan, everything was prepared for, that this led to an easier implementation of these systems as they highly encourage role collaboration um, and well established communication. What is the significance of this topic? So, this topic highlights that there is a critical role when it comes to the collaboration between hospitals and other agencies. Again, the less delay that there is on information making, the better, the more effective decisions can be made. Could possibly lead to less casualties, lead to less infrastructure damage, and lead to better recovery and response efforts. We also saw how the key to effective disaster response lies in the mitigation and preparedness phases. So, the more that a hospital or healthcare system tapped into their mitigation and preparedness plans, and the more that they were able to prepare their staff, we saw that this led to more effective and efficient response efforts. We also saw that there's an importance, huge importance on integrated planning and standardized frameworks. Again, that is the ICS and HICS frameworks that we were talking about, and how they can be used to improve hospital and healthcare system performance during a disaster. Again, because things are known before, not being made up on the fly or being made on limited information. Best to know as much information and best to know what the rules of everyone and every agency and stakeholder is prior. So, in terms of all of these findings, we saw that it was very significant and had a huge impact on the success of healthcare systems and hospitals' resilience in a disaster. Conclusions. So, overall, we know that hospital resilience is directly tied to collaboration with relevant stakeholders, really making sure that there is clear lines of communications, pre established plans with the EMS, firefighters, emergency managers, police officers, etc., local government, local community, and local community population. The more informed that all agencies are, the more successful a disaster is, as more people know what to do, what not to do, how they can help, and how their abilities can be used, and how their resources and information can benefit to the recovery. We also saw that mitigation and preparedness are key to response success. Again, the more planning we have, the better we are prepared to respond to a disaster. So, whether that be for local hospital staff, that being in their annual education, trainings, and exercises, definitely we saw the hospitals that included planning for disasters, whether there was not imminent or that we saw overall better response. So, definitely emphasis on mitigation and preparedness efforts, and then it'll follow that the response and recovery will be better off. Lessons and leadership applications. So, what are the takeaways from this in terms of leadership and what we can do moving forward? So, we saw that in this type of setting, hospitals that prioritize collaborative leadership had more success because they had clear lines of communication set between these interagencies that I have been talking about. And in terms of decision making, we have shared decision making, collaborative decision making, so we can see what is the optimal decisions that we can make for optimal recovery. Hospital leaders should integrate disaster preparedness into routine operations, just like I was mentioning before, really making sure that staff is aware of their roles during a disaster and include information as to what they can do to better prepare themselves, their family, and their workplace in their annual education and exercises. Leaders should also make sure that their staff is informed on the incident command systems and hospital incident command systems. And again, the collaborative leadership in terms of hospital incident command systems could possibly lead to the determinant of crisis standards of care, which is ideal as we want to avoid these at all costs because that means that tough decisions have to be made. That should be avoided by whatever means necessary. Leadership must also be well versed in effective communication and information sharing strategies specific for disasters. That mean that what is the most effective communication that is used? What is the common communication that is used when, for instance, cell towers are down, when there's no stable connection to be able to communicate as frequently as one might want to? And this should be established between hospital leadership and emergency management and first responders beforehand. Also, leaders should learn to be adaptive and decisive during a crisis, as this is important because we know that everything is timely during a disaster. We know that delays lead to failures, and not even failures, but could possibly lead to casualties and worse infrastructure damage, so on and so forth. So learn to be adaptive and decisive on the whim, as we know things can change within a second's notice in a disaster. So just make sure that leaders are well versed in this, that they're able to be adaptive, and they have decisive decision making skills. So that is all I have for you. Thank you very much.